I had a message for you yesterday. Just something I wanted to tell you that I thought could really help you with some of the things that you've been struggling with. I know that people complain all the time that I don't speak, that I seem so distant and aloof, but I truly, honest to me, had a message for you yesterday. And I was right there. When you first opened your eyes in the morning, and I cleared my throat ready to speak, but no sooner did you wake up than your hand came slamming down on the snooze button. And you were back asleep. And you did that again, and again, and again. Until when you finally did get up, you were running so late that you were just rushing around from one thing to the next until you got out of the door. You sat down in the car, alone in the driver's seat, and shut the door, and I thought, here, finally was my chance. I got you alone. But no sooner did you turn the key than the radio was blazing. And I tried to speak to you over the noise of the talk radio, but I don't think anything got through. And so it went through the day. You got to work and you were rushing around and your mind was full and I couldn't get a word in edgewise. Not even when you got a break. At least you called it a break, but first thing you did was you pulled out your phone and you checked your Facebook and returned a bunch of messages. And you didn't stop. At the end of the day, you got home. And you were tired and there was this mad dash to throw some food together and wolf it down because, well, you had to watch your television show. And then after that was the other one, and then the other one. And sometime later, you turned off what I think was the late show. And you closed your eyes. And I thought here finally was my chance because you actually lay there awake for quite some time. But no sooner did the lights go out than your mind was reeling with all your problems and all your worries and all your cares, and actually you tossed and turned all night long. And your mind never stopped. I had a message for you yesterday. But I don't think you were in a place where you could hear it. I don't know, maybe I'll try again tomorrow. And it is true that people often complain that God simply doesn't speak anymore. Why doesn't he talk to people like he did in the days of the prophets or when Jesus walked upon the earth? God seems so distant, so quiet. But my question is this: what if God is actually speaking? What if God is speaking all the time and the problem is simply that no one is listening? I mean, it wouldn't be all that surprising if we didn't hear what God had to say, because we have this way of surrounding ourselves with noise all the time. And I'm not just talking about the noise that comes from our televisions and radios and phones and MP3 players that come in the form of sound waves to our ears. I'm also talking about all that noise inside. You're familiar with it, I'm sure. That tape that keeps playing inside as you go through all the things you have to do, all the things you did, what you did wrong, what you need to do tomorrow, your problems, your worries, your cares. It doesn't stop. But you know, when the prophet Elijah needed to hear a message from God, when he was in trouble, when he was running for his life from the Queen Jezebel. When he was afraid and depressed and he needed God, God came to him. But how did God come to him? Did God come in the earthquake or the wind or the fire, these loud, noisy things, these activities with which Elijah surrounded himself every day? No. It says that God was not in those things. And when God did come to the prophet Elijah, he came to him rather, it says, in a still, small voice, a quiet whisper. Which meant, of course, that Elijah had to be completely silent or he would not have heard anything at all. When Jesus had this incredibly busy day that's described for us in the Gospel of Mark, when he was up at dawn, when he was preaching in the synagogue, as he cast out demons, he healed Simon Peter's mother and a long train of people who came to the door, and it just never ended. How did Jesus meet with God? Did he crank up the radio and listen to that? Did he click on the TV and flop down on the couch? No. Even Jesus had to go and find a quiet place. And so very early in the morning, while it was still dark, it says that Jesus got up and left the house and went off to a solitary place where he prayed alone. Even Jesus couldn't hear until he found that quiet. The Christian practice of finding quiet, of turning off the noise, both the external noise and the internal noise, and listening for the presence and the voice of God, is called the presence of contemplation, the practice of contemplation. It is an ancient Christian practice. It has been right there from the very beginning, pioneered in the 1st century, the 2nd century, and the 3rd century, by a group of people called the Desert Fathers, who ran off into the desert in Egypt, who left behind the hustle and bustle of life to go to the deserts of Palestine and in quiet wait for God. This same practice was deepened and developed down through the centuries. In the 16th century, a group of mystics developed various forms of contemplation. In modern times, a group of Trappist monks in the United States have promoted various forms of contemplation, but it is a very ancient Christian practice. Contemplation can be done in many ways. Any way in which you find yourself able to find silence, to turn off the noise. Some people do it through meditation. Some people do it through simply sitting in quiet. Some people have special places they go that turn off the noise and the busyness of life for them. But any way that you have of going and doing that, finding the silence, is a method of contemplation. There are so many ways of doing it, but it is a very difficult thing to do. Because, of course, it's not just a matter of turning off that outside noise. I mean, you can turn it off. You turn off the television, you turn off the radio, your phone, and everything. And on those rare occasions where that happens to you, you know what happens next, right? Because your mind starts racing. And you start thinking of all the things that you've done, all the things you should have done or could have done differently. You come up with that wonderful comeback that you should have used in the elevator this morning. You go through your to-do list, you rehearse your worries and your fears. You turn off the outside noise and the inside noise starts. And so various techniques have been employed by Christians down through the ages to not only turn off that outside noise, but also to turn off that internal noise and to truly be still and to know that God is God. I cannot prove to you through logic or reason that this would work. that if you find silence, that you will, in fact, encounter God. Because it's not a logical idea, and it's not a reasonable idea. What I can do, though, is this. I can offer you a technique, a way that you can use to quiet that external noise and that internal noise. And if you try it, you might experience the presence of God in ways that you do not otherwise in your life. So I'd like to present to you today a method, a technique that has been developed for finding internal quiet and silence so that you may encounter God. This method is called the centering prayer. It is a method that is part of that whole tradition I was talking about. It was pioneered by the Desert Fathers in the 2nd or 3rd century. It was deepened and developed in the 16th century by mystics like Teresa of Avila and John of the Cross. And in modern days, it has been promoted yet again by a group of Trappist monks in the United States and spread from them to many different Christian traditions and denominations. It is definitely a Christian tradition. Some people have seen some connections with Buddhist forms of meditation, but it goes back further, back in history, before Christianity ever contacted Buddhism. It is a uniquely Christian form of meditation. Centering prayer is a very brief prayer. And I mean an extraordinarily brief prayer. Most centering prayers consist exactly of one word or maybe 2 words. To do a centering prayer, this is what you do. You choose a sacred word. One word, maybe 2, that for you helps you to focus on something about the nature of God. So, for example, a good word for a centering prayer might simply be the word Jesus. Because Jesus is the one who has shown us what God is like. Another good word for a centering prayer, Abba. The Aramaic word for Father, the word that Jesus used to address God. Another good word, Shalom, the Hebrew word for peace, maybe shepherd, or love, or Father. Now, for the purposes of our little experiment, and we are going to try a little experiment here, I'm going to ask you to choose one of those words right now. Choose one that for you sort of helps you to reflect on the nature of God, that connect with the nature of God as you know Him. Choose one of these words. And we're going to try a centering prayer. Now, to do a centering prayer properly, you probably need about 20 minutes at least of silence. We don't have the time to do that here. We can't do it fully and completely, but I'd like to show you the technique. So first of all, choose your words. And this is how I'd like you to use it. I want you to sit as comfortably as you can in what are admittedly not the most comfortable seats in the world. But sit as comfortably as you can and close your eyes. I ask you to close your eyes because one of the things that keeps your mind going is your vision. Keeps your mind racing. You close your eyes, you close out half the world. Close your eyes. And this is where you use your sacred word. Take your word that you chose and simply repeat it to yourself. You can do this aloud or silently, but for now, do it silently. With every word, with every breath, just repeat that word to yourself and focus your mind completely on that one word. Now, when other things come to mind, as they will, you gently push them aside and focus only on that one word. And the trick is this. You've got to that place where all you're thinking about is that one word, that one thing. That you let go of that one word. And you sit in the silence. And perhaps God will communicate to you. Now that is all that centering prayer is. Focus on one word, let it fill your whole mind, and then let go of that word. It may not have worked for you here. We haven't had the time. But the thing about this is not just a spiritual practice, it is also a skill that you learn. By practicing that over time, you learn to do it better, to leave aside other thoughts, to let go of that final word, and to truly be silent. If you continue to try it, I won't guarantee you that you will encounter God, but you might. And that is worth it. I have placed some more information on the centering prayer in our spiritual center at the back of the sanctuary, as well as some other forms of contemplation, like using a labyrinth, for you to consider. But I encourage you. You're surrounded by noise, inside and out. Just think what could happen in just a few moments of utter silence. Be still and know that I am God. God, I do pray for the people of this church. I know you've been here. You've been here in the silence. We're not very good at entering the silence and listening for you. But I pray as we continue to practice that we might indeed open up our hearts to truly